Ready when you are.
Yeah, I mean this guy's nonstop now.
Okay.
This is working right up to the time of the interview. Well, guys, we are very pleased to be joined by the new head coach of Team Canada Men's Volleyball, Mr. Dan Lewis. And Dan, first and foremost, congratulations on the new appointment. Congratulations on the new job.
Thank you very much.
I don't know if there's anyone who's spent more time in this very gym than you. Like, over the course of the 15-ish years that the national team has been here in the GAT.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Vince put some long hours in.
Vince did put some long hours in, but Vince hasn't been around in half that time. And you did NEP, you spent time here as an athlete, you spent time here as an assistant coach for the men's team, you spent time here as the head coach for the B team, FTC, NEP, now this.
That's a lot, yeah.
Has there been any summer that you haven't spent in this gym?
No, not prior to it being built.
Wow.
So our post being built, yeah. We were here training at the old private school there one year when we first transferred over to Gatineau.
Saint Alexandre.
That's right. Nice school, great place. Yeah.
Not too
Good
bad.
people.
But,
yeah.
And how many years did you spend in Winnipeg before that too?
Well, it depends if you include both stints, you know.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
Because there was a couple of years there.
Under Garth?
Yeah.
Or Stelio?
A couple of years under Garth. Then I transferred to the beach. I kind of had that beach bug going, and then came back with Garth. Sorry, Stelio. That went okay, and then just went a different direction there for a year or two, and then wanted to come back and play for Glenn.
Yeah.
And that was a really important moment for me, just to collect who I was and who I wanted to be. And prior to that, I was a little bit all over the place. So it was important there to just get grounded in some principles and values, and Glenn really helped with that. And from there, history until here.
That was a very different point of Volleyball Canada. That was a very different point of the men's national team. Was this 2006, 2007?
Yeah, 2006. Then we came here, 2007, 08, we were, I think, training here then. Yeah, back then it was, we hadn't received funding yet from OTP.
Yeah.
There weren't a lot of players from Canada launching into high-level pro positions.
No.
Definitely not from university.
When I first started at Volleyball Canada in 2011, I had to make a list of all the athletes playing overseas, and there was 12 of them.
Yeah, it's incredible,
FTC at the time was guys who were starting on our national team. It was a place for them to train throughout the winter.
Yeah, recently I did a historical pathway chart for guys and how they got to, say, the top leagues, because if you want to do well as a national team, you need players playing in those leagues.
Of course.
You cannot really do it without that. It's a big part of their development and growth. So, like Gord, Nick, TJ, all those guys went through FTC. Then they either went pro or joined Glenn eventually in Turkey.
Yeah.
And then after their time there in Turkey, they were into bigger leagues and better leagues now. And then as the team got better, more opportunities, when was the first time you saw agents sniffing around the CIS finals?
2016.
Right? Yeah.
2016 when...
Right. So after the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
And,
or just before.
Yeah, so around that time, the funding kicked up in 2010 after World Championships.
Beaten Serbia.
We beat Serbia, and then we were able to access more funding. But the main point was we needed to get back into VNL, and World League at the time. Different format. So the guys get luxury treatment now compared to the old format.
I mean, I think we've discussed this first, but one of my favorite memories is 2011 in Kingston, and you guys beat Puerto Rico to qualify for World League. Because remember, it was Pan Am Cup here in Gatineau.
Right.
Ended up losing to the Brazilian military team in the semis. We got bronze, but we beat Mexico to qualify for World League. Then we beat Slovakia, come from behind here in Ottawa. Then went to Kingston.
Yeah, I remember the Slovakia matches really well. We lost the first night.
And
then we beat them the second night to take the.
And it was we lost 3-1 on the first night and won 3-0 the second night.
Yeah, and as a young volleyball player, you don't realize that you can can do that, like that night we're like, oh my God, we lost, it's over. And you
Oh,
come back and you win 3-0 and you're like, wait a second, how does that happen?
I remember like driving home from Canada because it was
Yeah.
at Corel, whatever it was,
Right.
Canadian Tire at the time, and I was just like, oh, like that sucks. We're not going to the World League.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Slovakia after Puerto Rico,
No,
like
it was
which one?
Slovakia first,
And then Puerto Rico, right? Yeah.
But yeah, I still remember.
That was a pretty good Slovakian team, actually. Like that's the old half of Czech Republic, Czechoslovakia, and then they had Mazny setting at that time.
The Mazny was
he was amazing.
He was pretty nasty. But yeah, after you guys beat Puerto Rico in that second game, I still remember like I was on the court and you came up to me like, "I'll see you next year, buddy," and you grabbed me, like picked me up, and I was like, "Yeah, let's go."
That was a huge, important moment for us. It's such an important tool for development.
I mean,
and
14 years later, 3 Olympics later, if you look
at
you
don't get to those Olympics without that tool.
No, not
likely without that tool. There's other ways for sure, but I mean, this is really important. And so now, this is an interesting time for our team right now because we don't have some of the veterans that have been a big part of that last, at least 8 years, if you look at it, between 4 and 8 years. So really a great opportunity for some other players that haven't played as much as an important role to step up now and get the opportunity. And a little bit, a lot of changeover in the last 4 years here, 5 years. So just need to clarify some good systems, and we're gonna be tested, right? So this will be good.
Talking about this young squad, you mentioned that first group of guys like TJs, the Gords, the the Grahams.
Yeah.
I look at this team that we have now, this young team that we have now, which has essentially been the B team or the next gen team for the past few years that you've led. I look at this team, and the only comparable team that I can find in our B team history is that 2012 team, where you had Nick and you had TJ. Gord wasn't on that team because he was already with the A guys, but you had Rudy, you had Marshall, you had Vigras. You had those core guys who ended up being the 2016 crew and the Tokyo crew. I think that this group of guys that we've seen on the B team over the past few seasons are better than those collection of guys.
Yeah, it's hard to say. It's really because the game is so different now than it was then. I think it's comparable. Probably, it's hard to remember all of those names you just mentioned, prior to their finishing, right? When I try to picture training with those guys when they were, 6 years prior to when they were finishing. Sorry, because that's kind of where this group would be. So I won't try to make any direct comparisons, but I will say that the opportunities for growth are there.
Yeah.
The avenues and the pathways through the professional teams are there. Okay, so let's take Finn McCarthy and Graham Vigras.
Yeah.
So if you look at Graham's professional career and where he started and went through, I think he was in France there for a bit before going to Turkey.
Yeah.
So there's a common thread.
French B.
That Glenn often helped launch many of those players into higher pro teams. So if you look at Finn right now, his team won the Polish championship.
Yep.
He was a big part of that as a starter for that team. Beat Lube in Sev Cup. So these are guys that are playing at that high level, and that's what you need if you want to have the national team success. In my opinion, those key players need to be in those best roles, facing the top talent all the time. Because you're over there in pro for 9 months.
Yeah.
The summer season's very short. Not a ton of time to train. We've had 2-3 weeks to train. So the majority of your growth is going to come from those pro seasons. And then here you get kind of more organized. You maybe get a little bit more direction sometimes. The big part here is kind of that, we spend a lot of time out with the team, but also the individual. How do we help you get to the next step? Finn's next step is becoming master blocker. Being able to, he's a very good server. For his size, he's a good defender. He understands the game. So now it's how do we grow with Team Canada, and then how do we individually help him become even better at what he wants. So, and that starts earlier now for the guys than it did before.
You guys are identifying kids for NEP in high school, right? That's what Preston and Harris have been doing, going around trying to identify kids.
Exactly.
Right?
So just trying to get kids on the pathway, let them understand what even the pathway could look like and does look like. So before it's kind of like high school, provincial team, Canada games. At the same time, maybe first, second year university.
Yeah.
Maybe you're U21 at that point. But now there's more opportunity. And then on the downstream a little bit too, you can go professionally a little bit quicker now.
Way quicker.
Yeah. So there's opportunities also to play on younger, like a lot of the pro clubs, they have second teams.
Yeah.
So that's now potentially a new pathway.
Do you think that's going to start happening? Like, do you think we're going to start seeing Canadian kids going to play for like an academy team or a second team?
My manager for my professional team already asked. He's like, I need one or two. We're allowed to have one or two internationals now on our developmental team.
Wow.
And they can go to school, university there as well. So this now becomes like a potential pathway for different pathway to professional teams. I mean, that was sometimes my messaging at NEP. I was like, you're 17 and you're here.
Yeah.
The equivalent of you in Poland is already on a professional team as the second libero or the fourth left side.
Absolutely.
And I would show them pictures. Like I can remember showing Yes Champia. Libero was 17 years old, just super green, right? But he was playing with Klevno, Tenuti. His coach was Mendez. And that's his training environment daily for 9 months. They went to Champions League, won it, and I'm trying to explain to them that we need to accelerate what we're doing.
But I mean, it's no different. Like in hockey, we all know how like the Czech kids and all of those European kids come and play.
Right.
Like,
exactly.
They come play in the O and in WHL and in
that's
the Q.
the best developmental league in the world, right?
100%.
Or one of them at least. And so if you think about it, if you want to be one of the best players in the world, then you need to go and think about what's the best pathway for that. So sometimes it is university. Sometimes it might be a different pathway.
But we've seen now in Canada that like there's multiple different pathways, right? Like there's like the Arthur route where he left a little bit, like he left university early, came to FTC, went pro.
Gavin.
Gavin did that. Gore did that. TJ did that. Nick did that. And then there's like the Stephen Marr, Eric Lepke route where you can run all the way through.
So those were super interesting cases. Those were two outliers.
Yeah.
So this is interesting because those two players, they were really important in the pathway model that I was like looking at because they went university to Italy.
Yeah.
And the only two that have done that. And then it took probably, I think when I look back at the years, it took Marr about 6 years to get to the very, very top level, 6 to 7 years, where he was competing in the cup finals and the league finals the other year. And then Lepke took about 4 or 5. He did it 1 or 2 years quicker.
Yeah.
No one's been able to do that. There's no other player in history that did that those routes. And they arguably are two of the best left sides in the world a couple of years ago and continuing. So, and we need 7 to 10 players in that
7
position.
To 10.
7 to 10
Okay.
to be able to say medal. So, right, if we're looking at a medal, I want a medal. You want a medal, you want the team to medal, then the reality is you need minimum 7, probably 10 players that not necessarily do that exact route, but by a certain time are playing in the top leagues. It took them 4 years in that top league or more to get their level to the point where they can play and compete and somewhat dominate in their position. And that's what it will take. So there's only been a few other examples. If you look at Gord and TJ, Nick, Graham, Gavin, I hope I'm not missing anybody. Freddie, similar. And then the idea would be that they made it to these top leagues, they contributed, they were able to go to the Olympics and compete, but they all ended up in the top leagues at one. So arguably, Freddie was in Italy at one point, he went to Korea, like Gavin, different route, but then Freddie ended up in Brazil a bit.
Yeah.
But right now you would say, okay, since Russia's been off the map for a little bit, it's Poland and Italy. Maybe Japan is going to arrive at a different style now. We don't know what's going to happen.
We'll see. I'm excited to see what happens.
Me too. I think that's great.
It'll be a different style altogether.
For sure. But high quality top league for your players to get into, to continue to grow and modify their games and just be able to compete at that level. And that's
huge.
That's what we're trying to do. So we need to figure out in Canada, how do we contribute to the growth of our athletes to allow them to do that? Otherwise, there's no chance at medals.
So before we talk about medals, though, I want to go back. You mentioned that like you decided to go back and play for Glenn in like 2006, and that was like a big decision for you in your pathway.
Yeah. Well, I was outside of the national team. I had a bit of a falling out with the program. I was a bit of an idiot, loose cannon, like not really clear directions in my, just all over the place a bit. Kind of had a opportunity to reflect about that, and then I still wanted to become a good volleyball player. I still wanted to help, and Glenn taking over the team opened up that window. So I came back. Like I didn't even know if they were going to let me try out, but I threatened the lawyer on them. Said, I'm coming, so you better let me try out.
You didn't
or
even
we're going to court.
It was not even asked nicely.
Well, it was an open tryout, right?
Okay,
So open is open. You can't discriminate, even if you are a punk. So I just remember like going there, and Glenn was there. He said, "Hi Dan, come here. Let's go sit down and have a chat." And we went, sat down, and he just asked me point blank, "Why are you here?" I knew more or less that he was going to ask that, and I just told him the truth. And the truth was, at that moment, I can help this team. I'm here because I can help this team. And he said, "Great. I'm going to make my own opinion about you. I'll create my own opinion about you and not just go on the rumors," because there were many.
Yeah.
And the rest was history, right? So it was like for me kind of that second chance. So I often try to lend the second chances to others as well because of that. It was a huge, really important moment for me in my development as a player and then as a person, actually. Maybe more person than player. So.
How did that development continue for you? Because you had a very interesting pathway. Like you joined the national team like 2006, 2007. You helped that team essentially get to Rio. And then I remember talking to you right before the team was picked for Rio. And you told me straight up, like, I don't think they're going to take me. I think they should take me.
Yeah, like Blair was playing so well. It was better for the team at the time. And the reality is that for me, my goal was not to go to the Olympics. My goal was to help the team go to the Olympics. That was always my goal. So I kind of envisioned myself as, when the spaceship used to take off. I don't know how they do it now, but like the spaceship would take off and then you'd see that booster rocket fall off before the payload made it to the target. Well, I was the booster rocket. Okay. And that's the way I view it. And
there was a few guys from that original team who were some booster rockets.
Yeah, and that's the reality is that you don't even get off the ground without the booster. Right?
Sunius.
So yeah, all those guys. So, I mean, for me, that was the glory of that situation. For me, was to watch those guys in Rio. And
you got to go as like the
laundry guy.
Yeah, like the team leader or manager.
Laundry manager. Yeah. It was great watching them beat USA. Just loving it. This kind of thing. So it was great. But to answer your question, like my development continued. Like right after that, up until then, to have Glenn as the mentor, and then to be exposed to, like I played in Poland. I went to Champions League twice. Once with Poland team, once with ACH in Slovenia, so we came third. We beat Treviso. Yeah, no, Zaksa was just in Poland after. Wasn't in Champions League with that. Was playing in Champions League, but not final. Sorry, Final Four. Going to Final Four twice.
Bydgoszcz?
Bydgoszcz was just where I kind of played at the end of my career. I was with Belhatov when Belhatov was really strong. So I played with Vlasli and the guys that were there. Grushka. These are all names probably that nobody knows, but
I mean,
unless you're a junkie, like volley junkie. So. But that was great. Beating Treviso with a bunch of the Italian superstars. It was funny because just so many guys now you just played against. You see like Stefan Ubner from Germany there. Like he was playing, I was actually playing against him at that bronze medal versus Treviso when we beat them in Poland. So it's nice to see him as a coach now. Yeah. And so this was up until 2016, and then I started coaching. But it was really, really important for me, to be here with Team Canada doing the development. Yeah. That gave me an opportunity to really refine the way I would train, and then also do some professional development and go see some other high-level coaches, and then to be training under Glenn the whole time. Right. This gives you my foundation, structure, understanding, especially for periodization and just like the group. Stefan Antiga, training under him as his assistant. He's like an executioner, right? He's, what do you have? And then I'll make it better, and then just execute. to work a little bit with Ben and Samuel just to see like the way they design their gyms and how they organize things. This all helped, you know.
Yeah.
And then I knew last year, I said, okay, like there's been a lot of changes at Team Canada. There's when you have, especially just in the international coaching market right now, like there's a lot of movement.
Yeah.
Planned or not planned. So I knew, I'm like, okay, might happen. My opportunity to apply for Team Canada might happen sooner rather than later. So I have to be ready. So then I needed to make the jump and go coach professionally, because I would not be ready to coach the national team right now if I didn't already coach pro.
Yeah.
I could, but I wouldn't be as prepared or ready or have as many applicable skills right now as I do. So that was really important. So a year and a half ago, I just called, agent and said, I need to go train, I need to go play, I need to go coach professionally. And at the time, it just worked out that Poitiers was available. They were looking to go in a different direction. I applied, it worked out, and that was a heck of a year.
I mean, can we tell me, like?
Yeah, we can go there, but that was one of the last most important pieces to make sure that I'm ready for right now, and to help this team, because we will be in a difficult period now.
Yeah.
Right? There will be moments that are extremely difficult. There'll be great moments as well. A lot of uncertainty, a lot of guys that will need to rise up quick.
Yeah.
The development part of me will help that, but we need to be able to execute too. So that was why it was so important to get to the professional ranks as well.
There's three things I want to touch on there. First and foremost, like, Glenn is undoubtedly the godfather of this program. And there's like not only like with men's national team, like not only like Team Canada, but also Volleyball Canada too. Like there's so much that Volleyball Canada doesn't have. If it's not for the success of this team, all predicated on like the back of Glenn, right? How much of I guess your new tenor now is taking what you learned from him and just applying it, or like taking this team and not imposing, but adding some of your thoughts and philosophies to it?
Yeah, I mean, my development, my understanding of the game is majority comes through Glenn's working with Glenn, working under Glenn, through his vision, his understanding. But foremost is the person, like the man Glenn, and that is his strongest point, because he's one of the most principle-based, honest working coaches I've ever been involved with. And so that is the most important thing. Okay. And then everything else that comes, like his relentless work, his effortless, tired. He's tired for sure, but he's not showing it. Just right today, I can remember so many different moments along the way. And after especially like severe moments, like losing often in World League at the young age of the team, and just trying to figure out how to keep going even, but that was when you would go every weekend, right? And you would fly from Brazil to like Finland and play, and you'd be just messed and it was ridiculous. But anyways, yeah. So I just asked him sometimes, like, even I can remember one specific moment where I felt like some of the guys on the team, they didn't care enough, they weren't prioritizing like certain things enough, and I just said, like, how do you just keep doing it, and his answer was like, these are my people. So he was doing, and he would find the energy and just the complete commitment all the time through his love for the country, his patriotism, but also like his love for everybody that he worked with. I mean, anybody that's talked to him knows, because it doesn't matter who you are, you get his full attention all the time, and he's just an open book. So that was a big part for Volleyball Canada, to have like somebody like this start as your North Star, right? And then now can we continue to, nothing is going to go just directly straight up.
No, never.
But we're gonna continue from a much better foundation now than say before.
Yeah. What's your outlook for this team? And that now this is essentially like a new era of Team Canada volleyball. In many ways, not only coaching staff, but as you mentioned, like Mar just retired from the team. We've seen a lot of like turnover. Guys like Van Berkel, who have been around for a long time, are gone.
Yeah.
It's a much younger generation. It's a much younger generation who grew up watching all of these legends play at the Olympics. So what's the new outlook of this team? Is it continue to survive and sustain? But you're mentioning medals as well too.
Well, I mean, you have to have your goals, right? So, but the reality at the moment is it's going to be a massive growth struggle, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to be in deep, even right now in VNL. We have certain weaknesses that we're going to have to figure out quick, and we're going to have to react and grow fast. The guys have really bought into what I would like to prioritize at the beginning. Mainly just like solidify block defense, understand that there's certain advantages through offense, and then it's like you have to be careful because you have to have a certain amount of skill to execute.
Yeah.
If you try to go too fast, too tricky, you're gonna fail rapidly. So you have to go incrementally in certain directions. There are some, like my big thing for me is like I really love like watching the mechanics and studying the principles of execution, like from a skill base, like that.
Yeah.
That's what I really enjoy, the motor patterning and thing of people's bodies and how they work and what type of body allows. Because there's like, for instance, in my opinion, there's about 3 different styles of middle blocker, and how do like these guys fit into each style, but some are kind of crossovers, and so you see like really rapid development in the way the blocking systems work right now, and I love this. I think it's great, and it's solving problems, right? So how to make guys more efficient, or how to help them make them more efficient, but then you got to have buy-in. So it's like no point in trying to coach a guy if he doesn't believe that this is the right way. So like we're in that mix right now, and there's certain things that they agree right now that will make them quicker, more efficient, and that's interesting for me that they're happy to try this. So it just means that like certain phases, like so you have your serve side, your block defense phase, you have your side out phase, then you have your block transition phase. Like all these, there's only so many phases. It's not like American football, right, where you have too many different things. But trying to figure out, like right now, okay, we're gonna need the game right now is really heavily influenced serve and receive, right? So this is what we'll have to protect ourselves from and make sure that we're organizing in such a fashion that allows us to not bleed too many points there, and to also put pressure on other teams that way. But now there's some rule changes. This is going to be interesting, right? This is, so we'll talk about that after, but yeah, this is where we're at right now. So, but to go back to your question, like this next kind of like outlook, the outlook is we're starting from a good base. We have lots of players that can play. We need to help them accelerate into better leagues. They have to hang on and hold in these better leagues. They have to continue to like never think that their skill is going to be enough. Like they always have to be willing to grow in skill, willing to grow in and continue to grow as athletes. We're going to need to figure out and how to continually play in a good system that's closed and well formed, but for multiple opportunities. But there's a couple things here. Like if we're only playing VNL to survive, if all of our, because it's open to relegation for everybody, so that helps us a little bit. But we're going to be under a lot of pressure. So if we're too worried about the performance, then we're just going to play in this kind of survivor mode. Yeah. And I refuse to be like that.
I think we kind of saw that a little bit at the beginning of this last quad, and like those first
you were in the survivor, especially with the old regulations and stuff. But anyways, you're constantly, like our team is constantly going to be a team that needs to develop and grow, not just through VNL, but just grow all the time. Okay, we don't have the base of athletes and the skill base that allows us just to like compete with the best in the world randomly every year. No, we need to continually grow. So the outlook for me is like we need to find a mentality and a philosophy that allows us to thrive and grow while we're competing. Because if we're just focusing on output and, we could go 0-12, we could go 6-6, we could make the finals, not make the finals, we could get relegated, not relegated. It's all over there. Yeah. What's your day-to-day look like? How do we improve every day? But we need to be in like this it's kind of like, okay, growth mindset, but it's like that's overused a little bit now. But the reality is like you need to learn how to grow and thrive. And if you're always just focusing on the outcome, then you're going to kill yourself. So, but we need also the opportunity to play younger people in VNL, like younger athletes, because otherwise by the time we get good enough, we're not deep enough. We're always going to be in this like cycle where we arrive almost, and I mean, the 3 qualifications for the Olympics, we were one when we beat Cuba and Vancouver there. That was our own. We took it, right? Yep. The other 2 we had to have some help.
Yeah.
So
very much.
It's been 3 Olympics in a row, and that's amazing. But it's been quarterfinals every time, right? So I think, and the world's just getting stronger. More countries it's getting more difficult.
You know, like coming from like where I know this is the last question. Your alarm just went off, but
That's
like
okay.
from where we were, you know, like losing to Serbia in 2010, or like we beat Serbia in 2010, but still don't make it out of pools at the World Championships.
Right.
You know,
right.
like you couldn't call Canada a volleyball country in 2010, but you can for sure call that Canada a volleyball country now. Like, is there not, you know, especially from someone who's like, other than Glenn, you've spent the most time around this program. Is there not an ability to step back and look at everything that's been created and be proud of that to a certain extent?
I think you have to, because you need to use it to help motivate you, you know, because the work is never done, right? It's your choice, especially in the high performance environment. It's nonstop problem solving, it's nonstop work, and we're never going to be like, oh, we're there, you know, and be able to like, whew, exhale. This just doesn't exist for us. Maybe in 20 years it could.
I don't think it exists for anyone though. Because I think even if you
you're going to falter pretty quick, right?
If you're a top, like look at Poland, for example. Yeah. Like, they should have the best team in the world, and they've still have been able to like win one of the big ones, right? Like once you get up there, there's a whole nother level of pressure to get to.
Yeah, I think it's just a scenario where it's just like this high performance at any sport is just this constant battle. It's not for everybody.
No.
You know, like it takes a certain type of mentality and different intrinsic, extrinsic motivations that are going to allow you to like have enough energy to go through day to day what you need to do. You're obviously, the guys are away, especially Canada. Like, you don't get to go home for the weekend like most of those European countries training. You know, they'll get time off with their family. Here, it's not so easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's just like a lot of different parts of the equation. So the outlook will be one where the philosophy, like, because right now we have some players that the demand from the professional, from the international, the professional, and family,
yeah.
You know, and friends, and just life. So we need to find a balance. I'm in the process of developing the full philosophy for this that allows us to thrive as individual people. But for instance, one of my principles is you're a member of Team Canada, but you have to be able to be a father first. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to stay here long enough for us to really get to the highest level. So we have to just rebalance.
We have that issue. Like, look at how many high-level guys we still have playing competitively in professional leagues who no longer want to play for the national team.
Right. And so we need to figure out, it's not necessarily like a retention issue, but we need to figure out a balance, in my opinion, that just allows you to field competitive teams with the right culture that are going to allow you to produce big moments and big wins for the program. And then an environment that helps to propel and launch players, but as well that other athletes want to continue to come back for either the country or the connection with the guys is also a very strong intrinsic motivation. And this is important. So the culture of the team, the connection with the players, the connection with the staff and everyone, and then the right balance. So this is what this next outlook is. This is the problem to solve.
Yeah.
For us to be continually one of maybe a contender. So how do we grow and develop, but how do we retain? And then how do we find that right balance to execute? So that's what I'll be trying to do.
Do you feel like, because of all these different like trials and tribulations that you've gone, all the different steps that you've gone in your career, that right now is the perfect time, that right now you're ready for this role and you're ready to take on this program?
Yeah, and that last piece was going professionally, right? Like, it's very different. There's not very many coaches that coach internationally that haven't been in the trenches professionally. It just prepares you really well for that. There's only like one maybe other model that didn't do it. So this is the right moment. I also have a young family, so I can understand. I can understand the needs of some of the players maybe quite well. So I think this is the moment for me to try my best and try to help Team Canada and continue with the program in that manner. And I think the Team Canada role as head coach is never not a developmental role.
No.
Like, it's never not. this is why I feel like I'm well positioned to help the group. I like to execute, I like to win, but I love to develop as well. So this will be what I try to do going forward.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited. I'm excited for you. What's the over/under on you getting a card this year just because you get too jacked up on the sidelines and you jump onto the court? I mean, I was here for practice the other day. Like, there was a really nice transition play fastball at the outside. Hisslinga threw it down, and you jumped in and like got into the huddle and were cheering with the guys.
You're trying so hard to learn fast how new execution and stuff, and I just want to make sure that the positive reinforcement is there, but it's also just like, it's deep in my heart and soul to enjoy the growth, and this is what I like, right?
Yeah. I mean, we saw you on the sidelines in 2019 at that World Cup, and you were a fan favorite with a few of those sellies. So
I tried to settle it down this year a little bit, and didn't go so well. So sometimes I just have to, like, I can't even hold things in my hand when I coach so much, quick in and
really?
up. I have to it just feels like electricity needs to shoot from my hands, you know.
Are we going to see? Was it Tilly, that one who was the coach, who the ball was flying and he went and dived for it? Is that going to be a Dan Lewis moment?
I think he did that when he knew he had a gold medal in his pocket. So I'll do it when we execute really well.
Okay, sounds good. Dan,
all right, thanks very much.
Thanks, man.
Okay,
really appreciate
all the best.
Best of luck.
Thank you.
We'll be watching.
Okay, thanks.